What up, guys? The Bench Buddies are back with my MLB Week 16 power rankings last week before we head into the All-Star break. And the biggest movers of last week's games is going to be the Detroit Tigers. My Detroit Tigers might have some life back into them. I'm still pronouncing them dead, but they're starting to rise from the grave a little bit after last week's performance, while the Angels have officially hit rock bottom after going 0-6 last week. But let's jump into the standings. It's going to be the American League first. The Rays kind of running away with the AL East here with the Yankee struggles without Judge, without Stanton. Jazz has been inconsistent. Bellinger's not doing much. This team is really starting to fall. The Yankees and the Rays are definitely taking advantage of that as they continue to grow their division lead, while the Blue Jays, Orioles, and the Red Sox just can't even get to 500. AL Central, same thing. White Sox Guardians played each other. The White Sox and Guardians split that series last weekend, 2-2. So nothing really changed there except the White Sox ahead of the division by one game. Twins looking to slowly enter the race along with the Tigers as they need to get back to 500. Then the Royals have been the biggest disappointment so far as they are down in the dumps. And then the AL West. Um, I thought the A's were going to contend for this thing, but they had a bad week as well last week, and they're slowly kind of playing their way out of this division. So it might be a three-team race here when it's all said and done at the end of the year in the AL West with the Mariners, Rangers, and Astros. If I'm picking a team to win it, I'm probably going with the Astros just because time and time again, this team always finds a way to do it. So give me the Astros at this point in the season, but it's going to be a great race for that AL West. Moving to the NL East, the Braves atop the division, but here come those Phillies. They are not far behind after their atrocious start. They're one of the best teams in baseball since the middle of April, along with the Marlins. This team has been some really good team in June, the best team in June, and they've continued it over already into July. As this team is 7 games above 500 and being a real threat for the NL wild card along with the Nationals. They are there. And the team I haven't mentioned is the Mets, who is one or half game out of the worst record in the National League, which is just mind-boggling to me. Beginning of the year, I would have called you crazy. All-Star break, this team would be out of it. But it is what it is. And we'll move to the NL Central. Brewers slowly running away with this thing. It feels like they add a half a game to a game each week over the Cubs. And even with the Cubs' great early week, they sputtered out in the end in that series, and that's where the Brewers capitalized. They just keep on winning series and keep on growing that lead. Cardinals had a great week. Pirates staying above 500, while the Reds just keep digging themselves a hole in the NL Central. NL West, I don't even want to talk about it anymore. Dodgers already won this division. Diamondbacks should say 44 and 45, not 35 there. Uh, it's over. It's over. The NL West is already over. Let's see if they can maybe get another team into the playoffs at this point. Because right now, obviously, you have the Braves, Brewers, and Dodgers as the three divisional leaders. And then the Chicago Cubs would be the fourth seed hosting the Philadelphia Phillies. And then that sixth seed right now would be the Miami Marlins. And the next closest is the Cardinals, as they're only 2 games back from them. And the Nationals and Pirates would be next in line. So the NL West, notice I haven't mentioned them. Um, they're pretty far down here in this wild card race. So they're going to have to step it up here if Diamondbacks or Padres want to get into this thing. Now, starting at the bottom 30, the Angels, brutal week. So they get moved all the way to the bottom as they're on a 6 game losing streak heading in to this week where they go to Texas and Minnesota. Not much hope there. The Reds, like I mentioned, they keep finding themselves towards the bottom of everything, and here they are at 29, along with the Mets. I mean, the Mets jumped them because they played some better teams and won just as many games. So I'm putting them up there. And they played Atlanta on Monday, and they actually just took the lead in the ninth. So they're probably going to split that series with the Braves before they get Kansas City and Boston at home, which could be some series they could win and possibly get things going in the right direction before the All-Star break. Orioles move up one spot after winning in Cincinnati. It's not the best series win with how bad they're playing, but it is a series win before Chicago. Cubs come to town and the Royals. Then the Giants, they're one of the few teams that have announced that they are selling this deadline. And with that being the case, don't be surprised if the Giants end up being the worst team in baseball this year. But they do have Toronto and Colorado at home here. Maybe they can give the fans one last hurrah before they start ripping away this team before the All-Star break. 21 through 25. You got teams here that aren't officially out of it. Well, unless you're the Rockies because you're in the National League. But the four AL teams here, they're not officially out of it, but it's getting pretty dim, those chances. A lot of these teams are going to have weeks like the Tigers and the Red Sox if they want to get back into the hunt. Got to win almost every series or sweep a series. And that's what the Red Sox and Tigers did. Tigers went 5-1 last week, swept New York in New York, went to Texas and won that series. Red Sox swept the Angels in Los Angeles and lost a tight series to the Nationals. But these two teams kind of playing well as of late. Maybe July can be their month and they start to turn it around because for Boston, pitching's not the problem. It's the hitting, the lineup. And White Sox and the Mets this week, maybe this is the week where they can kind of turn it around here, get that lineup going. Tigers at home, they get six. They get the A's, which are just a team that has been on the decline here in the last few weeks. And then the Phillies, obviously, who are on fire. So this Tigers team, let's say they go 5-1 again. I mean, they'd only be 6 games under 500 heading into the All-Star break. Rockies at 23 move up after a series win against San Francisco and played a great series against the Marlins. They could be moving right back down though because they play the Dodgers in LA and then they go to San Francisco again before the break. A's doesn't get any easier for them this week as they go across the country to face Tigers and the White Sox. Then the Royals stay at 25. Yes, they got swept to the Tampa Bay Rays, and I thought this team was moving down a ton, but somehow they beat the Phillies in a series. They just won on Monday and won that series. So they're staying put at 25 here before they head out east to face the Mets and the Orioles. Now, starting at the back, we'll go with 20 in the Blue Jays, a great series win against the Mets at home. Couldn't carry that momentum to the start of their West Coast trip in Seattle. Just got out pitched. I mean, Dylan Cease dominated, and that's how they got the win in that one game. But Savage played pretty well, but just the bullpen didn't do too much. The lineup wasn't there before they go now to California and face the Giants and the Padres. Diamondbacks, just another mediocre week, do what they have to do. And this week, I think, is going to be a big tell, not just for them, because obviously they're playing the Padres, but Padres as well. I mean, these two teams here are 44 and 45, and something's got to give here if these two teams want to get going here. But moving back to the Diamondbacks, 3 in LA before the break. I don't know. This team could end up with 50 losses here before the All-Star break when it's all said and done. But on the positive note, we got the Twins there smushed in the middle of those two teams, moving up 5 spots. Won a series in Houston, won a series in New York. Can they take that momentum and ride that momentum where they face Cleveland here early in the week? And if they can win that series, they take 2 of 3. I mean, that'd be huge for the AL Central standings for the White Sox, the Tigers, and obviously the Twins as well to climb back into this thing. And then they get the Angels at home. So this Twins team very well could end up over 500 when it's all said and done here at the end of the week at the All-Star break. Padres, already talked about them. They just keep declining. This lineup sucks. Pitching's been okay. No bullpen besides Mason Miller. Guardians, not much to report because there's no names to report besides Bazana is the only one doing anything at this point for the Guardians. And obviously the pitching rotation. But Jose Ramirez looks like he's going to be joining the team right after the All-Star break, which is a huge boost to that lineup. But they go to Minnesota and then Miami. So tough week here for the Guardians, where this team, don't be shocked if they are under 500 before the All-Star break. Now, 11 through 15, you might be confused. The Yankees outside the top 10, well, they're playing atrocious the last 2 weeks. 1-5 last week, got swept to the Tigers at home. Then you lose a series against Minnesota at home, and you get rewarded by going to Tampa, who's winning the AL East. And they got to show up in this one because let's say they lose the series 3-1. You just dug an even bigger hole because it doesn't look like Aaron Judge is returning anytime soon alongside Giancarlo Stanton. And then after that series, you go to Washington, who's can hit the crap out of the ball. So this Yankees team could really be struggling as they enter the All-Star break, and it's definitely a break at a much needed time. Those Nationals are at 12 after a mediocre week, tough week against AL teams, against Houston and the Yankees. Expect them to keep hitting the ball well. Mariners finally show up again, and then this means this week they're going to go to Florida and go 1-5 because this Mariners team is just confusing. They pitch well and hit well some weeks, and then the next week it just all falls apart. So if this Mariners team can really figure it out and be more consistent, they'll probably run away with the AL West with how everyone else is playing. like the Texas Rangers. They go to Cleveland, win that series, win the first game against Detroit at home, and then just the lineup falls apart and can't hit. And they sit at 500 at 45 and 45. Big week for them as they get the Angels and the Astros before the break. And I say that because it's divisional games. Those games mean more. So the Rangers, if they want to start to compete for this division, maybe this is the week where they can regain that lead if they can beat Houston, especially. And then in the middle of both those AL West teams, it's the Pittsburgh Pirates moving up 3 spots, went into Philly and split, which is a huge series success, I think, if you're a Pirates fan. Then you go to Washington and take that series as well. So the Pirates definitely with some sign of life on the road before it gets tough for them this week as they welcome Atlanta and Milwaukee. I think if they go 3-3, that is a huge success, and anything more than that is going to be just great for those Pirates fans as they would finish over 500 at the All-Star break. Now, starting my top 10, the St. Louis Cardinals join here yet again after a dominant week on the road. Win a series in Atlanta, win a series against the Cubs on the road. They get 5 against the Brewers to begin the week, and then 3 against Atlanta. So they're playing 8 games, 7 days before the All-Star break. And it's a big week for them because, the Braves are really good. They're kind of struggling right now. But the Brewers, obviously, they're number one team in the division. And let's say they go 4-1 and take that series. I mean, they're, bringing the Brewers down in the series, giving the Cubs a chance and themselves a chance to possibly get back into this NL Central. The White Sox at 9, not really much to report there, except Colston Montgomery is a dog, needs more recognition. Tampa Bay, Junior Caminero, what he has been doing last week and the week before, just unheard of, 6 straight games with a home run, and he's in the home run derby. Not a surprise there. I expect to see him continue mashing against the Yankees rotation, who's been awful here these last few weeks. And then the Mariners at home before the break. Astros at 7. Not much to report there. Besides, Jordan is just carrying this team yet again. They go on the road for the break, and it's going to be the Nationals in Texas. Interesting series there for the Astros, where they can get over 500 for what feels like the first time ever this year. Then the Braves stay at 6. They won the series against the Mets, which they should have done, but they probably just lost, actually. So it's probably a split series. And then they lost to St. Louis at home before they head out east to face Pittsburgh and St. Louis before the break. And that St. Louis series could be another interesting series. Now you go to St. Louis, who's on fire. Um, Tough series there for the Braves before the break, but this lineup really could use Acuna. It's starting to kind of bleed a little bit. I mean, it's still a very deep lineup, but Acuna's bat in the lineup has definitely proven that this team is not as top tier as it could be. So we'll be interested to see what this team does at the deadline. Now, 1 through 5, I expect 1 and 2 on everybody's power rankings at this point in the year with the Dodgers and the Brewers. I mean, they're taking care of business, doing what they have to do, winning series. Miami stays at 3 for me. They were definitely falling after losing on the road to Colorado twice. Did split the series, but responding well by going into Sacramento and sweeping the A's. The perfect game situation. I mean, let's be honest, everybody would have taken him out there coming back from an injury, 92 pitches. Unless you're in the 1980s, they would have threw him back out there. But this Marlins team has a legitimate chance to contend in the NL East if the Braves have a bad week. Philly's all on the road this week, so that could be problems there. Who knows? Maybe the Miami Marlins could somehow, some way be winning the NL East when we go to the All-Star break if they go 6-0 this week. So a lot of crazy scenarios here that could happen in the NL East before the break. The Phillies at 4, move down 2 spots. Not a good showing this week on the road already in Kansas City. And then they go to Cincinnati and then Detroit to close it out. Phillies could start to leak a little bit, but I expect them to keep mashing the ball as long as Schwarber is healthy. Then the Chicago Cubs are making their appearance here yet again at the top 5 because this team is the most inconsistent, best team ever. Sweeping the Padres at home, dominating that series, scoring 23 runs, and then literally the next day against the Cardinals, you give up 17 runs and only score 1. This Cubs team is just so confusing to me, but when they're on, they are on, and when they're off, you think, is this team any good? Um, Cubs fans, let me know what you think because I feel like that's a pretty fair assessment. Where one day they're just the best team in baseball, and the next day they're bottom 10 in baseball. We'll see what they got this week as they go on the road to face some teams that they should win series against, and possibly get to 55 wins at the break, which would be a great success for the Cubs with all things considered. That's all I got for you here in week 16. Come back later this week. I'll actually be doing an all-star breakdown, recapping where everybody got voted to, who the fill-ins are, and then the home run derby bracket. So make sure you are tuned in and hit that subscribe button on your way out if you have not already to stay up to date. Till the next time, the Bench Buddies are out.